So how can we get the best looking board, or I guess the best looking pieces with the least amount of effort? I think the easiest thing is going to be using these font awesome icons. And we should have everything that we need, right? We've got the king, the queen, knights, pawns, bishops, rooks. It should be everything. What we might have also been able to do is, rather than building the board this way, we could have just grabbed an SVG like this and use this as the actual image for the board. However, I like the idea of each of those squares being individual HTML elements that I can manipulate easily with jQuery. Whereas, using an SVG like this would be much more tricky to actually change, say, the background color of one square like this. Like, let's say we want to add for whatever the last, if we click on a square, let's say we want to change the color of that square, and just that square, so not all of them. So let me refresh. Just that square, for example. We want to change the color to beige. I can do that super easily. So I like the idea of having them as individual elements. So I think what I want to do is, let's try getting just one piece, one pawn. Let's get the A2 pawn in the right position. So I'll grab this markup, and I've also got to grab the font awesome style sheet. So let me put that in here first, and then let's grab the font awesome CDN. Font awesome CDN. all.min.css. Copy link tag. And we've got the pawn. It's easy as that. So how do we want to do this? I think that what I want to do is make the board relative, make its position relative. Nope. And then let's say for this piece, we want the position to be absolute, and then translate like 10 pixels, 20 pixels. Can I do that? Let me look at the info for this function. Oh, I've got to do transform translate. Okay. So let's do so that'll move this relative to its nearly positioned ancestor, right? So if I look at the computed, I thought that the nearest positioned ancestor would be the board itself. So I figured that, for example, translating this 30% of the x-axis would take us about a third of the way through the board, where 50% would put us right in the middle. So why isn't that happening? Like, what if we put this directly under the board? Position absolute, the position of this is relative. Or is it translated a percentage from, like what if I do 100%? Oh, it's based on its own width. Okay. So how can we do this? Let's see, CSS translate to middle of parent. I could just look up center with translate. So what if instead of using translate, let's see what we can do. So let's do top is now 100%. Okay, now that is based on the entire board. So like if we want it in the middle, 50%, and then left 50%. Okay. Well, let me actually put this back in. Let me refresh this to put it back in the correct place, which is within the square, right? So we've got the board at, let's position this relative. And now the actual pawn position is absolute. Let's do top 50%, left 50%, what happens if I flex? Okay, now that's meaningless because this is an absolutely positioned element. So adding flexbox to the actual square doesn't do anything. So obviously what I want to do is I want the center of this piece to actually be in the center of one of these squares. So let's do, like, if I did 12.5, percent and 12.5%. 0. So using these percentages in increments of 12.5, so 100% divided by 8, we can, so like if I wanted this in A1, it would just be, well, in this case it would have to be 100%, right? What's 0% give me? So 0, 12.5, 25, 37.5, 50, 62.5, 75, okay, 87.5. Let me think for a second. Okay, so for now I think I found a much easier way of doing this. Originally what I was planning on doing is, my hope was that I could click on a square and have some sort of method give me the coordinates of that square in a percentage, so I could apply those percentages on the X and Y axis, apply those percentages to some sort of transform, like CSS. So transform, translate, and what I would be plugging into this translate function here would just be the percentage of those percentages. So really, I would expect that, for example, A1 would be 0 and 0 would be the percentages, and then H8 would be 100, 100. H1 would be 100, 0. H2, 100, 12.5, etc. Right? But I think the easiest thing is, let's grab all these square classes, and do deflex, justify, content, center, and then align, items, center. And then one easy way, so that's in the center, right? One easy way of changing the size of these pieces is I can use this. I think I can just do like FA-3x. If we look at the documentation real quick, and we look at sizing icons, yep, XS, SM, 3x. So here's all of the classes that Font Awesome supports to resize icons. So just for now, let's use this. We can fine tune that more and then actually say something like font size 40 pixels if we want to, so we have more control. I think for now, let's do 2x. Okay? And for example, whenever we're actually moving a piece, this is really easy. This is really, really easy. What we can do is just with jQuery, move that piece to another square, within another square. And now it's moved and it's centered and we don't have to worry about anything. So let's get all the pieces for white in the right positions now. So let's do, well, first of all, let's make these pieces white. Simple enough. And I'm actually going to full screen this. Oops. And close it, apparently. I'm going to full screen this and then get all the pieces in the right place. So B2, C2, D2, E2, F2, G2, H2. Go back. Those are all of our pawns. Very cool. Now let's get the two rooks. So the rook is FHS rook. So FHS rook on A1 and H1. FHS rook. Did I change the class in the right place? Yeah. Boom, we got our rooks. These pieces kind of look cool, actually. So we got our rook. The queen is always on her own color. So this is D1. So D1, we've got our queen. And then B1 is a knight. G1 is a knight. Save it. Go back over. Okay. C1 is a bishop. F1 is a bishop. And now we're just missing the king. Protect the king. And now we've got all the white pieces. So, for example, let's say that we want to add the logic to move our pawn from E1, or sorry, E2 to E4, right? What we can do, this is cool. We can do something like this. We can do, so we've got our E2 ID. And let's do dot append to E4. Oh, hold on. That's actually the class. Append to E4. The ID E4. And look at that. And that actually, another reason to have all these HTML fields or all of these squares as separate HTML elements with their own unique IDs that match their position on the grid is I think that this reads a little bit better. We can tell, like, okay, we're moving the piece on E2 to E4. So it's like, it's easier for me to think of programming this when I can actually think of this like in terms of like standard notation, standard chess notation. Is it? Yeah, algebraic notation. Which the original version is descriptive notation, which might actually work too, but I think the algebraic notation works just fine in this case. So we've got all the white pieces positioned in the right place. And we just saw that with jQuery, it should be relatively easy to move pieces, right? So what we can do is really have click events where if I click on this square and then click on this square, we fire this logic. So let's do that in the next one.